reason I'm only reading it on video. So I'm gonna start literally exactly where I ended in the last video, so if you're reading with me, then it's seamless. You can just watch the videos back to back. But I guess it's not a very good audiobook because I get distracted. I need to tell you all of my personal opinions about everything that I read about. Of course. Something kind of cute. So I said this before, but in the other video, so this book was pre-owned, so there's a bunch of highlights and underlines in it. There's pencil underlines, and then there's yellow highlighter. So I don't know if that's like the same person using two tools, but that would be extra cool if it was two different people. And I think it is actually two different people because I just opened this page up. And it has a Desmond, and then Joel T. Smith, but there isn't, okay, in the book it's yellow highlighter and number 2 pencil underline, but this is a blue pen and this is a red marker. 4 different kinds of utensils. I can't track if Desmond was the highlighter and this guy was the pencil. It would be impossible to know, except deductive reasoning. Look at this guy's handwriting. Doesn't he look like he would use a pencil? And this guy, doesn't he look like he would use a highlighter? You know what I mean? Look at that. And then I added my name just to compare. Don't I look like I would be using a colored pencil based on my handwriting? I don't know how well you can see that, but I think it's cool to see how much your personality comes out in your handwriting. My brother has this book that's how to analyze your personality through your handwriting. It's funny, but it's very interesting in my opinion. Okay, so where were we? Alright, this was a good sentence. We already read this one, but just to recap. Art is the... Oh, wait. No. I'm setting a timer so I know how long I've been reading because I want to do 30 minutes max. I don't really need to be doing more than that. And this tonight necessarily. Because usually I just go till my battery's out, but the battery's full, so I can't. It'll stop me in an hour and a half, and I need a place to stop. I need somebody to tell me when to stop. Okay. Oh, I have Bunny here to come hang out with us, as always. Alright, this was a good sentence. Art is the language through which we perceive. I'll do spoken. Why not? Art is the language through which we perceive. I know people have opinions, though, about whether they want whispered or soft-spoken. I tend to really like soft-spoken. I mean, I like whispered too, but it's just, I know some people just turned the video off. They were like, oh, no more whispering. Next. It's funny. Anyways, art is the language through which we perceive new relationships at work in the environment, both physical and metaphysical. Indeed, art is the essential instrument in the very development of that consciousness. As Hermann Hesse observed, every important cultural gesture comes down to a morality, a model for human behavior concentrated into a gesture. Whitehead found it to be... I really want to get into Whitehead. Process and Reality, that book is on my list, but I need an abridged version because the official Process and Reality, I got it at the library once. I was like, this is too much. So I'm gonna get process and reality for babies or something. When I'm trying to read philosophy books or get into like certain authors and contexts, how I started this year doing that at all was these like videos online of like it's like kind of podcasty moments of like people having conversations about a certain book. So my favorite one, or I haven't read it, but I'm gonna get it. But I watched all these videos and like researched this guy, Nishitani, Religion and Nothingness and that stuff. Like it was like a gateway into like this whole landscape of stuff that I was just like I've not been able to get it out of my head since I was introduced to those concepts right at the beginning of 2024. So a lot of what I've been studying and stuff has been like filtered through that context. I'm like, wow, this is kind of relevant because like, blah, 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 blah. But that's, whatever. It's a lens. Okay. All right. There was this whole bit about like the generation gap, like our new generation, we kind of are rejecting the ways of the old because it's all built on lies, this country, the whole infrastructure. So we're trying to start a new reality. Our generation has grown up, we're digital natives. I learned that term yesterday in my other book. Being digital natives, like children who were born in technology, were like there's a massive chasm split between us and our parents, our generations. I just watched a movie 5 seconds ago about it was The Straight Story, like a David Lynch Disney movie. Hilarious. About this old guy who's like can't drive. He has a tractor, so he has to use his tractor to get like across the state. It's about like technology and time going on and people getting phased out, and I just was sobbing for like an hour because I couldn't handle it. It makes me think about that, and I have sympathy for the people who get left behind, even though it's like extremely necessary that we like move forward forcefully. We have to, you know what I mean? Everything is very complicated these days. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Alright, this is where I stopped on the last page because I remember ending on like the most like WTF paragraph. In this century alone, we have gone from less than 1% of humanity being able to survive in appreciable health and comfort to 44% of humanity surviving at a standard of living unexperienced or undreamed of before. This utterly unpredicted synergetic success occurred within only 2/3 of a century, despite continually decreasing metallic resources per each world person. The world total of $70 billion in mined gold represents only 3/1000% of the value of the world's organized industrial production resources. The second half of that is kind of weird, but it is shocking to think about how mind-bogglingly fast things go now, or have gone in this last century. Within the sounded stupid. Within the larger context of radical evolution, there are many local revolutions. One of them is the revolution of the expectations that burns in the minds of the new consciousness. I like this part. Eskimo children who've never seen a wheeled vehicle can identify the types of aircraft flying over the North Pole. Young Dyaks in the longhouses of equatorial Borneo listen to the Beatles on transistor radios. Teenage Bedouins wandering the Sahara near Nasser's radio, telling Vietnamese children are being slaughtered half the world away. You open TikTok and you see inside like 50 people's houses in like 20 minutes, sandwiched in between, videos of children being like burnt alive, and then you're just scrolling. This guy would be like really scared to see the current state of things. Or maybe he'd be like, holy crap, this is fascinating, I want to write another book to cope. I had to listen to this song after, because I didn't know the song he was talking about. I wasn't obsessed with it. I only like Bob Dylan when he's really, really sad. When he's happy, I'm like, boring, next. Dylan swears he sees his reflection so high above the wall upon which he once drew conclusions. Seeing that reflection is the revolution. It tells us old reasons for doing things that no longer exist. There's less to do because circumstances do it for us. The earth. Art has obscured the difference between art and life. Now life will obscure the difference between life and art. That's awesome. What does it mean? But I like it. I like to hear it. We no longer need to prove our right to live. We're struggling in the toil of old realities, stranded from our conscious, doing our best to deny it. We are tragically in need of new. See, this author, I don't know if you can tell, it seems as if he writes one sentence and you're like, I don't know what that means, and then he writes another sentence and you're like, that was unrelated, and I still don't know what you mean, and then he writes another sentence and you're like, that was completely unrelated to the last two sentences, and then that paragraph is completely unrelated to whatever the last paragraph was. I mean, I see the point he's making. It's just the way he writes is so like, you're like, what are you, like, are you getting to an argument? And of course he is, because I mean, like, now I can see it when I'm like squinting. I can see the whole picture, but like, dude, his sentences are really weird. Which I like, because it reads like disjointed poetry, like how lines kind of break off and it just keeps going, and then you just kind of like have to flow with it. As I've said, the best essays are the ones that are written by poets. Also, I don't want to read an essay that's not written by a poet because it would be boring. But he's saying that the new consciousness are all these kids around the world who are in the Sahara Desert in the North Pole. We're all tuned in to the whole world, which is very scary to me, but I think he's trying to find how this is like the birth of a new self-awareness, and one that could take us dramatically into the future. You know, we could find something really powerful out of it, because he's saying that like our ability to see our own reflection is a revolution, like it's a bold new design. He's optimistic, which I give him credit for. I admire that. I'm not so optimistic because I feel, I don't know about you all, but I feel debilitated by the self-awareness. I think it drags everybody down. But maybe it is a new consciousness in a different way. Maybe two things can be true. Anyway, here we're getting to the kicker. This is the real important line right here. This one. It's like the thesis, finally. We are tragically in need of new vision. Expanded cinema is the beginning of that vision. We shall be released. We will bring down the wall. We'll be reunited with our reflection. Thesis statement. I'm writing at the end of, this is the last paragraph. I'm writing at the end of the era of cinema as we've known it, the beginning of an era of image exchange between man and man. The cinema, said Godard, is truth 24 times a second. The truth is this, that with the possibility of each man on earth being born a physical success, there is no archetypal man whom one can use in the culturally elitist manner, and each man becomes the subject of his own study. The historical preoccupation with finding the one idea that is man will give way to the idea that Earth is, and then to the idea of other Earths. then you're with him, and then you're just like, and you're into it because it's poetry. It's so beautiful, but it's just like, what are you talking about? I think he gives too much credit to I understand what he's saying about how there's no archetypal man anymore. If it were true that everybody was creating themselves in their own image, if everybody was making something that was truly themselves. But I do think it has gotten like worse than ever. Like you go online and you compare yourself to other people, and like you build your own identity off of the people you see. Everybody does, you know? Because I think he's saying that if we all are given the technology and the ability to create our own cinema for ourselves, then there's nobody we can compare ourselves to, because we're creating ourselves. If you can look at an image of yourself, you have nothing to aspire to but what you are, you know? But I think most people don't understand the power they have to do that, and they can't, like, I mean, me too. Like, I'm not saying I'm not excluded from that, but I do think I'm trying, because I do make my own stuff. But I do think most people are still striving for an archetypal man. You know what I mean? You have to take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I'm just trying to have fun here, and I like talking. But I really hope I don't sound pretentious, because I think a lot of people tend to people don't call me pretentious, but I have been called pretentious, and I don't agree with that, and it hurts my feelings. Because I'm not. I'm super normal and easy and chill to hang out with. Ask me, here's the game we're gonna play. How many times on this channel I'm gonna clarify that I'm not pretentious when nobody asked and nobody actually cares, because nobody's gonna watch this video who isn't like interested in it. So what do you think that says about me psychologically? I'm afraid I'm pretentious, so I have to keep saying it to affirm that I'm not pretentious, but I'm not. Alright, next chapter. Well, that was the so section 1. This book has like 4 or 5 sections, or more than that, but they all start with like 5 pages of introduction and then like chapters. So that was the like introduction to section 1, and this is the first chapter. Radical Evolution and Future Shock in the Paleo-Cybernetic Age. You know, I'm on board with that. Whatever the Paleo-Cybernetic Age is, let's find out. This is the kind of stuff that excites me. I'm thrilled about. It is perhaps not coincidental. I'm such a nerd, and every time I hear myself say something like that, I'm like, oh my god, you shut up, you're so weird. Like, just be normal. Say normal things. But it's late. I'm tired. I'm just gonna be stupid. There's so many good pictures in this book. It's like awesome. Okay. It is perhaps not coincidental that Western youth has discovered the One Ching, or Book of Changes. I don't know if it's I Ching or Book of Changes, on a somewhat popular level as we move into the final third of the 20th century. This book was written in the 70s. Change is now our only constant, a global institution. That's awesome. The human ecological biosphere is undergoing its second great transition, destined to be even more profound than the invention of agriculture in the Neolithic age. If we can't see the change, at least we can feel it. future shock affects our psyche and our economy just as culture shock disorients the Peace Corps worker in Borneo. This book is so good. I haven't read. I just graduated from college. I love reading in classes because I had a class called Expanded Cinema, and I had another class that we just had like the most world expanding readings just from all these different books and different places and stuff. And so a lot of them I like wrote down so I can like, or I saved all the PDFs, but so I could like go find longer books, you know what I mean? Because I haven't read a ton of like theory. This year is like the first year I've actually really tried to get into it, and I've just got lucky that I had some classes with some like extremely engaging stuff to read and kind of like start me on. So I'm still kind of in that phase where I'm like, my mind is very easily blown, you know what I mean? I'm like, that'll probably go away later once I read a lot, but like every sentence of this book, I swear, it's just like, I'm like, I can't even believe somebody like put this in words so intensely. I'm like, because they just interesting. It is said that we are living in a period of revolution. Okay, you said that. But nothing sells like freedom. Revolution is big business. As the physicist P.W. Bridgman once said, the true meaning of a term is found by observing what a man does with it, not what he says about it. Since the phenomenon we call revolution is worldwide, and since it's felt I was reading something about, what was it? Operative imagery. Harun Farokhi, Phantom Images, an essay he wrote. It's not even relevant. It was relevant in like a non-constructive kind of way. Since the phenomenon, I was just trying to like think through it and be like, wait, okay, is that relevant? But I need to remember what the original argument was, and it's not really. Since the phenomenon we call revolution is worldwide, and since it's felt in every human experience, perhaps we might think of it not as revolution, but as radical evolution. Revolution is basically the same whether defined by Marx or the I Ching, removal of the antiquated. But revolution replaces one status quo with another. Radical evolution is never static. It's a perpetual state of polarization. Yeah, feel that. We could think of it as involuntary revolution, but whatever, that's good. I'm like, Jesus, can it all please like shut the fuck up? But no, it's all happening. But whatever terminology we apply, that's the condition of the world today. The environment with which the artist must work. Radical evolution would be kinder if it were better understood. But it won't be so long as commercial entertainment cinema continues to present a reality that doesn't exist. Because we're not evolving if we're being lied to. We need the true reflection for what he was saying. The movie I was watching earlier, the main character's name was Alvin, I think. Yes. Yeah. Sociologist Alvin Toffler has stressed ephemerality as a chief aspect of radical evolution. Interesting claim. Smith Brothers cough drops, Calumet baking soda, Ivory soap have become institutions by virtue of their long reign in the marketplace. In the days ahead, few products will enjoy such longevity. Corporations may create new products, knowing full well they'll remain on the market for only a matter of a few weeks or months. By extension, the corporations themselves, as well as unions, government agencies, and all other organizations, may either have shorter lifespans or be forced to undergo incessant and radical reorganization. Yeah, the involuntary revolution. Rapid decay and regeneration will be the watchwords of tomorrow. Yeah. As like fads get like faster and faster, and man, this guy would be obsessed with shit that's going on today. He'd be like, because we've gone so far into the like, never mind. It's like everything he's saying, it's understandable. Because I think if you were to write a book about this today, it would be like so difficult to like wrap your head around the like full mind-boggling reality of it. That it's almost like if you were trying to write a book about phones, that would be like, I think it would be even harder to understand than it would be if it was just TV, like one TV in a house. Like all these words apply today, but it's almost like, okay, at least you had a more manageable view to tackle. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, this is already so LSD core intense, trying to understand just the technology of 1970. 50 years later, it would be like it's incomprehensible. Like, I feel like this is, I like how it applies today. Toffler, I have these new piercings, and I'm trying to like, I can feel like a little tag on it and trying to like clean it off. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but don't mind me sticking my finger in my ear. I'm not gonna do it anymore because I probably should just let it do its thing. Toffler observes that no reasonable man should plan his life beyond 10 years. Even that, he says, is risky. When parents speak of their sons becoming lawyers, they are deceiving themselves and their sons, according to the sociologists, because we have no conception of what being a lawyer will mean 20 years hence. Most probably, lawyers will be computers. In fact, we can't be sure that some occupations will even exist when our children come of age. For example, the computer programmer, a job first created in the 1950s, will be as obsolete as the blacksmith within a decade. Computers will reprogram and even regenerate themselves. IBM recently announced a new computer that repairs itself. Okay, see, in some ways he's really on the money, and then some ways he's like, it's sort of like, it's like, okay, he's getting there. Or even maybe he's still ahead of his time and give it 20 more years, then it'll be true. But still, I think it's a little... I just need to shut up and just actually read it. I keep contradicting myself. John McHale, co-author of the World Design Science Decade documents with Buckminster Fuller, emphasizes expendability and impermanence in radical evolution. Use value is replacing ownership value. For example, the growth of rental and services, not only in automobiles and houses, but from skis to bridal gowns to heirloom silver, castles, and works of art, are personal and household objects, when destroyed physically or outmoded symbolically, may be replaced by others exactly similar. A paper napkin, a suit, a chair, an automobile are items with identical replacement value. Metals in a cigarette lighter today may be within a month or year part of an auto lipstick case or orbiting satellite. The concept of permanence in no way enables one to relate adequately to our present situation. Awesome. It's a really good way of wording it. The concept of permanence in no way enables one to relate adequately to our present situation. That's fantastic. Mikhail has seen the need for a totally new worldview as radical evolution speeds farther from our grasp. There's a mythology abroad which equates the discovery and publication of new facts with new knowledge. Knowledge is not simply accumulated facts, but the production of unrelated and often apparently irrelevant facts into new conceptual wholes. He's talking about completely new ways of looking at the world and everything in it. This is proposition far more profound than mere political revolution. That's how it's written, but there's 2 spaces in between one of these words. This is proposition far more profound than mere political revolution, which Krishnamurti has characterized as the modification of the right according to the ideas of the left. The new consciousness transcends both right and left. We must redefine everything. What happens to our definition of intelligence when computers as an extension of the human brain are the same size, weight, and cost as transistor radios? They're being developed through the microelectronics process of large-scale integration. What happens to our definition of morality when biochemists are about to unravel the secrets of the DNA-RNA interaction mechanism to create human life? What happens to our definition of man when our next-door neighbor is a cyborg, a human with inorganic parts? There are several crude cyborgs in the world today. Sometimes, we're all cyborgs now that we have phones, but sometimes I think about my estrogen, because that's sort of like, it's made in a factory, and it is literally like changed my DNA, like everything about the chemical makeup of my head to my toes. I'm like, I was cooked up in a factory. You tell me what a cyborg is. What happens to our definition of environment when our video extensions bring us the reality of the solar system daily? That's a fucking killer line. That's good. I wish it's just 1,000 times more hardcore today. What do we mean by nature under these conditions? The first satellite ended nature in the conventional sense. Interesting. What happens to our definition of creativity when a computer asks itself an original question without being programmed to do so? This has occurred several times. Only like 10 times. What happens to our definition of family when the intermedia network brings the behavior of the world into our home and when we can be anywhere in the world in a few hours? What happens to family when you fall asleep to ASMR every night? You know? What happens to our definition of progress when, according to Lewis Pauls, for the really attentive observer, the problems facing contemporary intelligence are no longer problems of progress. The concept of progress has been dead for some years now. Today it is a question of change of state, of transmutation. Interesting. Or Norbert Wiener, simple faith in progress is not a conviction belonging to strength, but one belonging to acquiescence and hence to weakness. Only a few more paragraphs left, 3. And then I'll be done. What happens to our definitions of material and spiritual when science has found no boundary between the two? And that's what I try to convince my science friends, and she's like, I just don't understand that spiritual stuff. I'm like, girl, you are looking at the essence of life under a microscope. We are talking about the same things, girlfriend. I'm just a little hippier about it. But she always tunes out, and I'm always like, why do you think we're not talking about the same thing? Although it is still popularly assumed that the world is divided into animate and inanimate phenomena, virologists working at the supposed threshold between life and non-life at the virus level have in fact discovered no such boundary. Both animate and inanimate have persisted right across yesterday's supposed threshold in both directions. Subsequently, what was animate has become foggier and foggier. No life per se has been isolated. Interesting. Indeed, what becomes of reality itself as science expands its mastery of the forces of the universe? The paradox of 20th century science consists of its unreality in terms of sense impressions, dealing as it does in energy transformation, submicroscopic particles. It has become a kind of metaphysical practice, a kind of metaphysics practiced by a devoted priestly cult. I confused myself. Indeed, what becomes of reality itself as science expands its mastery of the forces of the universe? The paradox of 20th century science consists of its unreality in terms of sense impressions, dealing as it does in energy transformation, submicroscopic particles. It has become a kind of metaphysics practiced by a devoted priestly cult, totally as divorced from the common sense notions of reality as was the metaphysics practiced by witch doctors and alchemists. It is not at all odd, then, to discover that the closer we come via the scientific method to truth, the closer we become to understanding the truth symbolized in myths. Weird. Very weird. I'm wrapping my head around that one, but I like the idea of those paragraphs. Okay, last one. This, then, is merely a superficial glimpse at some of the phenomena that characterize the Paleo-Cybernetic age. Quite clearly, man is in the paradoxical position of existing in a state of consciousness without being able to understand it. Even more so today, that's what I was trying to say in the last. Man does not comprehend his relationship to the universe, either physical or metaphysical. He insists on doing his thing without the slightest notion of what his thing may be. This cosmic credibility gap exists primarily between the facts of scientific experience and the illusions of environmental conditioning as manifested in the global intermediate network. Well, that was a very good chapter, wasn't it?